In this video, we sit down with Mike and Alicia Hernon from the Messy Family Project. And let me tell you, if you are looking for inspiration, reasons, ideas to develop a mission, a purpose, a goal for your life, for your marriage, for your family, wow, do they have incredible ideas and insight. So all that and more is coming up next.
Today, we have Mike and Alicia Hernon on, who are the founders of the Messy Family Project, here to talk about the family board meeting. So Mike and Alicia, welcome.
It is great to be here with you.
Yeah, thanks so much.
So I am super curious, can you give us a little background of how did you guys start the Messy Family podcast? Like, what did that look like as you guys were in the beginning stages of the Messy Family Project?
You know, actually, when you say that question, the first thing I think of is, well, how did we start the Messy Family Project? Well, when I was in college, I looked across campus and I saw this guy and I was like, you know what, he's kind of hot, you know? And that's really where it started. Okay, let's be honest. Like that.
We just celebrated our anniversary, so
yeah.
How many years?
Just 28.
Wow, that's so awesome. Okay, all right. So that's when it all started.
Yeah. So that's really when it all started. But if you want to know how
that's our vocation story.
Yes, exactly. That's our vocation story. But so we have 10 children, and somewhere, I think after the 10th child was born, we have 10 children, but I also come from a family of 10. So I'm the second oldest of 10 children. And so when we would get together with siblings at holidays and stuff, I think probably around when Claire was born, they were all much younger than us, right? And so they were like in the 3 kids under 5 or 5 kids under 10. And at holidays, they would just be asking us questions like, how do you get your kids to sleep through the night? And how do you make time for each other? And then finally, one of them was like, you guys should really do a podcast. And I was like, what's a podcast?
Step one.
Exactly. So anyway, but it was really their encouragement. And you can hear at the beginning, our first 3 or 4 podcasts where we kind of talk about that. We're like, yeah, this is probably just like my brothers and sisters listening, you know? But anyway, so then it just kind of grew from there. I mean,
and really what it was on our heart was to do something together. So we had done marriage prep together early in our marriage. We had served, we had done a couple, Bible studies, different things for couples, but really being in the throes of having lots of kids kept us very focused on the home, which is right. But we also had it on our heart when the time was right to go out and serve again. And this was just our small little thing. But one of the things I think that was important to us was that we wanted to make sure it was accessible to anybody, that it was messy, right? And that's one of the reasons we use the word
realistic.
It's like, we don't want to create this false image of what family life is. It is crazy. It is sometimes messy. It is, all these things, but it's in that mess that it's really, we found joy. It's in the life lived honestly that we find the greatest adventure in this life.
Right. And I think that in talking to a lot of young couples, I find that there's a real disservice that is done when we paint as, Pope Francis actually talks about this idealistic view of marriage and family life that is unattainable. And I feel like that can happen very easily. In the Catholic world, not on purpose, but one young couple we were talking to, they were like, we feel like the church paints this huge, beautiful vista. It's like a mountain range, of marriage and family life. And you're like, oh, that's so beautiful. They were like, but meanwhile, we're like, so where's the first foothold?
Where's that path going?
Where's the trailhead? Where I get the vista, and so really that's what we try to do in our ministry is kind of give okay, here's the first step. All right, here's the next step. And when the podcast started growing, I remember looking at those numbers and being like, who is listening to this? So, because we're very bad at marketing ourselves. We're very bad. But for the past 3 years, we've been blessed to do this full time. So it went from kind of being something on the side, like a ministry, a part-time ministry, to being our full-time employment. And And we love it. We love it because we love the couples that we're serving, and we love just sharing our lives and sharing the joy of the gospel, really, and living Catholic family life.
Yeah, I think you bring up, man, such good points. Two things that I really want to touch on, or maybe just kind of pull the thread and see what unravels. The first one is just the importance of the messiness, of the realness. Sometimes it's hard on when Instagram or, so many of these things that just paint such a perfect picture, right? And that's all people are experiencing. And I laugh in thinking about the messiness, like we're the messiest family we know, because when you go over someone's house, right, people that clean, so but then you come back to your house and life is messy. And so people just don't get that, that interaction, that they don't get that understanding that there's beauty in that messiness.
That's right.
So I don't know, any thoughts on that?
Well, a recent idea here is that, we don't invite kids, we just celebrated the holidays. We don't invite kids in to bake cookies with us because we think it's going to be clean or it's going to be really efficient. Or
that's like my personal purgatory is baking with children. Anyway, so that's why this is a good example for us.
But we do it not because we think it's going to be, perfect, or it's going to be, the sufficient way. We do it because of the relationship. We do it because we're trying to train and form. In spite of the fact that it's a little messy, this is where we create community. This is where formation happens. This is where all of that kind of family culture.
Allowing the child to serve the family, and and I feel like part of everything that's happening, and there's so many different reasons, and efficiency and cleanliness is not one of them.
But what is it talking about, right? It's talking about getting into the messiness of our own lives. And when we stand out and we, I worked in politics for a number of years, and they would say that a politician's in trouble when he starts believing his own press releases, but sometimes we present this image on Facebook and Instagram, the Pinterest perfect photoshopped image. Are we being honest with ourselves? Because God knows us. Yeah. Do we know ourselves? Yeah. Are we starting to believe that false image we're putting out there? And it also creates this barrier, like you're saying, Drew, just with other families. Like, hey, am I the only one struggling? Almost 9 times out of 10, when we share with folks, one of the first things we say just so you know, we've been there, or you're not alone. And then there's just a sigh. There's just a weight that's lifted from people. Yeah. And I think that's what community is all about. And real community is about being candid and honest and seeing us in our ups and downs, and having the courage in your marriage, in your family life, in your community to be able to say, hey, this is what I'm struggling with. This is what I'm going through. Because we all have stuff. It's just a matter of have we dealt with it? Have we worked through it? Are we honest about it?
And I think that too, the point of community is also to know that things do get better. And so when you have community with people who are a little bit ahead of you, or like at all different stages, or even who are younger than you, because then you can remember just certain things, certain challenges. And you're like, I do remember that. But also to have hope that, you don't, everything is a phase with kids. Yeah. Another older mom told me that once. Everything is a phase. And it's so true. But when you're in it, you don't feel that way. Yeah. And so that's why it's so important to have those realistic conversations, not so you can just like wallow together, you know what I mean? And just like stay down the dumps and feel like a victim, but instead so you can be like, you know what? When you have somebody who's a little bit older to just say, things get better. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. And it's important to know that, this is hard. And it's okay that it's hard. It's okay. Yeah. You will learn through it. You can do this. Yeah.
I think that's such good points. There's so much there on the friendships that I really value are the friends that let me come into their house and see the mess.
Yes.
I really value being able to speak to a couple that are older who are like, oh, they'll sleep through the night. It'll be okay. And also to speak to the first time mom who's trying to figure out breastfeeding. And I just remember like the stress of that. And I'm like, oh yeah, that was so hard. Now it's really easy. And like that element of learning and watching on both sides and having that hope and that importance of having people come alongside of you in that journey. And so thank you for your podcast. Yeah. Thank you for that resource to be able to speak into the messiness while I'm cleaning the mess of the kitchen. And I'm able to listen to it and be reminded that I'm not alone on this journey.
A quick story. So we were at Chipotle the other day, and we are the 3 kids under 5, and so it's just super messy, right? There's like cheese flying everywhere, drinks get spilled. We've got to go to the bathroom 4 times, and as we're walking out, this dad who has like high school kids that was kind of on the other side just kind of leans over and he goes, "Don't worry, it gets easier." It was such like a
yeah.
You know, just the encouragement. It's
so true.
It meant a
Even
lot.
from strangers. That's
Yeah, right. Seriously. Okay, so and then the second thing that you guys talked about was kind of this vista or this this image, this vision of what marriage could be. And so could you guys talk a little bit about why is that important? Because oftentimes I feel like, especially in young couples, young parenting, we just get bogged down with the day-to-day of just trying to get tiny children to survive. And we lose a little bit of that vision.
Yes, that is an excellent point, because one of the things, so we tell couples when they do our courses that you can play a little drinking game, and just and take a drink every time we say intentional, because we use the word intentional a lot. And I think that the reason that beauty of family life, like what the church paints for us in Familiaris Consortio and Amoris Laetitia, or even just in the lives of the saints, the reason that that's important is because we have to have a goal. Like, you have to have a goal. I think a lot of families today can be floating along. There's 2 kinds of families. All right. So we've had the opportunity to look at lots of different families throughout the years, right? And relate to them. And there's 2 kinds of families. There's families that live for pleasure, and there's families that live for purpose. Ooh. And I think today there's a lot of families, even Catholic families, who have a lot of kids who may be still living for pleasure, in the sense that they're just waiting for that moment when all the kids are in bed, and so that they can just like collapse, or they're just waiting. They're just trying to survive. And so they give the kids the phone, or they're just putting the kids in front of the TV, or they're just trying to survive. We as Catholic families have to do so much more than just survive. We have to live for purpose. Okay. We have to be living for purpose, and living for purpose is keeping that vision of Catholic family life in front of us. And so we can be making goals to get there.
Yeah. And I think that's probably the pivotal distinction, is when you look at it and say families that are on purpose, what do they have? They have a vision of where they want their family to be. They understand what the mission is for all Catholic or Christian families, but they also have a particular vision for their own family. And they may have some anxiety, they may have some stress, they may have even some fear, about where they're at right now, or the future for their kids.
Are we good enough? Are we doing it right? That's still present.
Yeah.
But they don't let that stop them.
Right.
They don't let them stop them from moving forward. And they're not always looking for the next entertainment. Now, we love watching shows and streaming stuff. I mean, that's not what we're saying. But it's like, you don't
do that to escape.
We don't use that as a purpose, whether that's the purpose in our marriage, or whether that's the purpose for we're working just so we can have a break and not do anything and sit around and everyone be on their own screen. You know what I mean? That's not what we're living for.
Right.
So that's a big part of one, Catholics and Christian families understanding this is what the church's mission and vision is. But God is inviting us to go even a one step further and say, what is your vision? What is your unique purpose? So there's a universal and a particular that I think is really kind of fun, which kind of leads into.
And to be clear, like, I don't want to knock leisure in any sense of the word. That's absolutely not what we're saying. But what we're saying is that having that time of leisure, but doing it purposefully, doing it to be refreshed and renewed, so you can come back into the battle, doing it so you can build your relationship with your children. And so it's not necessarily the things you do, but it's the motivation of why you do them and what your purpose is, as opposed to just living for pleasure and surviving.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we've worked on a lot, and after listening to you guys and talking to you guys of that intentionality and building the family culture, something that I've been really convicted of in my prayer and with my spiritual director is the fact that you can either be intentional or you can be influenced by the culture. And guess what? The culture, like our present culture, does not want you to get to heaven.
That's
like
right.
The devil also has a plan for you.
That's right.
And so something inside of me just has this natural disgust for being manipulated, for being influenced, like in this way that I don't have a say in that. And so I think more and more we've just been convicted of no, if we are gonna have to be the ones that sit down with God in prayer, making a goal, making a vision, like we are going to have to build this culture for our family if we want to build saints and get to heaven, because just doing the status quo, right? Just binging Netflix and eating Doritos on the couch, like all day is not going to get us to heaven. So how are we going to do that in our family?
Yeah. And I think evaluating the fruits too, Alicia, you said it doesn't matter necessarily what we're doing, but I think at some point of like evaluating, is this helping me to be a better mom? When I take a Mother's Day Sabbath and it's in our schedule and I take the day and I go, do I come back more refreshed or am I more distracted?
Yes.
When I watch a TV show, am I relaxing actually, or am I coming away with a headache and then I'm tired the next morning because I stayed up an hour later than I should have? And, so all of those like evaluations of, is this feeding, when I'm looking at doing stuff with my kids that's building connection in that recreation versus is it building just frustration and dissonance? And that like reality of also looking at that, I think is so important in building a culture that is healthy in our schedule and in kind of those practical. Any thoughts?
Yeah. And with that, it's like, there's even just what you said. I mean, it's the reality that we all need to live a more reflected life, kind of looking at where are we at? We're evaluating ourselves. And a Christian looks at it, at least heavily based on the fruit, looks on it. That's a discernment of where are we at? Is it bearing fruit for my marriage? Am I more invested in my vocation? Are we in our relationships more united or more fractured? And these are moments of discernment as parents to evaluate, how are we doing? Because we know the concept of culture, but are we being intentional about the culture we're stewarding in our home? Are we looking at this? And it's a new year, right? And this is a great time for us to really kind of evaluate that, to really look at our culture, look at our family and saying, what are some of the key pillars that we have in our home? What are the traditions and the rituals, if you will, the habits of the home? And saying, are they leading us towards God's vision, towards, the greater unity in our marriage and our family lives?
I think you guys have a great download on your website, and I will link it below, that helps people walk through how to develop a family culture. And then you guys have taken this one step forward with the idea of a family board meeting. Could you explain a little bit about where that came from and what that looks like in your marriage?
Yeah. So the family board meeting is something we are very excited about because we really think that it is a transformative tool for couples. So when we say family board meeting, we don't mean the whole family, right? But if you look at like your family is like a corporation and you and your spouse are the board, that run that little corporation that is your family. And so
Hernon Family Inc.
Okay. Exactly. And so you and your spouse have to come together and evaluate how you're doing, make goals for evaluate how you're doing, but then cast a vision for where do we want to be, where are we going? And then make the goals that you need to get there. And then discern priorities of because you can't focus on everything. And so, so what is our first priority? Really very much the way that, that really good businesses run. And so we kind of draw a lot of from best practices and businesses and goal setting and things like that, but all from the standpoint of being a Catholic family. And it is so important that Catholic families are intentional about building their family culture. And then if you're not doing something like the family board meeting, that you start doing it. Because one thing that we tell families that I really want people to believe, I want the couples who are listening to believe this, that the Catholic family has what the whole world is looking for. We do. We have what the whole world is looking for. And the world cannot afford for us to not take that seriously and to just live for pleasure and just survive. No, if we have the truth, how we got to live that? And you need to really think about that. And it's easy to say you can live intentionally, but what we found is that couples were like, again, looking for that first foothold. Okay, but how? How do we do it? And so we came up with this tool, and we have 2 different podcasts about it on our website that you could find. I think you can probably just go to our search engine on our website and look for it. But we have 2 podcasts where we talk about it, as well as a download for the family board meeting.
Worksheet to help couples walk through this.
Yeah. And so we kind of started there, but then we realized, you know what, we really should make this into a course. And so we're actually doing a free webinar January 28th that anybody can come to. And then at the end of the month, at the end of February, we're actually doing like a paid course
to kind of mentor and walk with couples.
Right.
But last year we had a little over 300, I think, couples that did it live with us for this webinar. And it's simple when you do it. And then, but the reality is that we've been doing this for 15, 20,
like we've been kind of doing it on our own, and obviously like before the ministry and everything. It was something that we did ourselves.
But now we actually were just talking to a couple a week or 2 ago who have been listening to us for like 6-7 years. And they are been married 6 or 7 years. So they started it from the beginning of their marriage, doing this as a regular annual event. Now, it's more intense when you do the first year, but it becomes easier as you go. But they were sharing some of the fruits of this. And it was just like, they said, we've always desired this. And now we're actually seeing it come to reality. Not every goal we have comes to pass. But one of the things that they took away was we really wanted to have date nights. They have a weekly date night. And their kids actually and it's often a date inside their house, but they actually have their kids, because they set it as a goal. Or maybe they're not married 7 years now that I said that, but they
must be married 10 years. I think they have 7 kids in 10 years. They have a lot of kids.
Awesome. But they have their kids helping out with the date night, and they made it family culture. So anyway, it's just like there's so many beautiful fruits of the process of being going through the family board meeting.
Something that stands out to me, and something that we really dove into after we had talked to you guys previously, was kind of the idea of dreaming, of setting a vision. We are, I would say, very intentional in the day-to-day life of building those habits, and I think the military does a pretty good job of setting you up to form habits and drills those into you. But something that we hadn't really done in a while was to dream big, because in the military it's like, well, you just go where they send you, and like that's just the obedience and the way it is, and then you kind of make the best of it once you get there. But very rarely have we sat down and gone like, no, what is God calling our family to? How are we? What is our purpose? Like our meaning in life? How are we going to use this life in order to glorify God? And so we just kind of started asking a lot of those questions. And then even things really started to become clear where, we started looking at some of these desires and like, oh man, it would be so cool if we did this, or if we lived here, or, if we started this ministry and stuff. But then as we started to become on the same team with kind of our mini family board meeting, we started to realize that, okay, there are awesome desires, but some of them are the 10-year plan, or are not super feasible right now. But it's still good. It's still good to realize that that is something that's on your heart, on our hearts, and that we can work towards. But it's okay to say like, right now might not be the best time for our family to accomplish some of those.
And having that clear communication with each other. I think when we were on the phone with you, we had like a disconnect moment where Drew like came out and was like, my dream is to do retreats. And I was like, oh my goodness, what gave me the most peace was that we didn't have to go run a retreat next week because we can do our digital coaching right now, and realizing like sometimes to communicate like, oh, but my long-term goal is one day to do retreats.
Yeah.
It's not while I have 3 under 5, but it's reality that we can get there. And I think structure, like what you guys provide in helping couples break down the different categories, and then also in some ways, like what's this year and what is your 5 and 10 year type of goals.
And one of the things that I love about doing the family board meeting with other couples is really affirming the different perspectives that spouses bring. Because sometimes, I mean, obviously all of us are forming families from 2 different perspectives, right? And you can see that, oh, it's bad that we have differences. No, it's bad that we, are coming from these different places. Why are we so different? And we want to say like, no, it's so good. It's so good. Because the reality is that God is present in your unity. God has brought you together. God has created you. And there has never been a marriage like yours in the history of the world. When you think about that, like there's never been a marriage like yours, and there never will be a marriage like yours ever again.
Irreplaceable and unique.
Yes, you are irreplaceable and unrepeatable. And so for couples to realize that if you have someone who really loves to dream big, yes, you got to go there. You got to let that happen. And then you have somebody who is very like, okay, this moment, like this next step, like do the laundry tomorrow kind of thing. That is absolutely important too. And you just have to find the way that you can communicate with each other, and that you can respect the differences of the other, recognizing that to really have a dynamic family, you need both of those.
Right.
And I just love affirming differences in couples, but helping them see this is how you can communicate and work together to build something that is irrepeatable. Unrepeatable, irreplaceable.
All of the above.
Yes, all of the above. Yeah, and I think, man, it seems like very much, as we have this discussion, there's just a beautiful theme of beauty and love, but also truth. It's the vision, but also the practical. And so much of our society misses either one or the other. We get bogged down in the day to day, but then we forget to dream. We forget that God gave us those desires and they're beautiful. Or sometimes we just have our heads in the clouds, but then we don't know how to take the first step. It's analysis paralysis, or we just don't have the courage to just go, okay, that is the vision. And I don't know how to get to the mountaintop, but we're going to figure it out. The first thing is just to take the first step.
That's so true. And what we've seen just in this is that it's something that is, we create children together through our marriage, but we're also being called to create what does God have for us? I mean, you've already said this, but it's just like, there's something so powerful about this. I just recently read this homily that Dietrich Bonhoeffer, so the anti-Nazi, he was a spy, Protestant pastor, very pro-Catholic, or at least friendly to Catholics. But he wrote about to his niece who was getting married. And he says, the love and the romance between the two of you is a private thing. But when you get married, this is now a public affair. You're stepping into an office. And I don't think I fully appreciated that when I got married, that this was an office of service to the church and the world. Right. Yeah. And I think we need to own this, that when we get married, we're now, being sent out 2 by 2. And the first are the children, the fruit of our love. But that spiritual fruit is tangible in these kids, and first and foremost, but it's also about a whole big world that we need to share through our family, with our family, but also even beyond that. So the two of you together, it would be so much simpler if, hey, you just did what I wanted to do. But together, we're actually going to come up with what God wants, because this is our greatest spiritual director. I have my own spiritual director, but she is my greatest counselor, my greatest coach, my greatest encourager, but she's also the greatest challenge and support and in so many different ways, and I for her, right? And this together is how we're supposed to do this.
Right.
And it's not her way or my way, it's our way. And that's what the family board meeting endeavors to do, is create this deeper sense of unity of what you're called to, and see how you truly complement each other. And that's like in your own giftedness, your own values, but also what are our shared values? What are our shared vision? And the family board meeting really walks you through a 5-step process to really walk couples into this very, very united vision and a united goal, so that you can end up with, hey, this is what we're doing right now. How do we make this a reality today?
And one of the, there's obviously a lot of lies that the world gives and a lot of distortions regarding marriage. And Mike kind of touched on one of them, and that is that your marriage is about the two of you. The marriage is about your love. That this is like a fairy tale becoming a reality, and all of these kinds of things. And that's not true. That's not true. You don't get married in private. You have to have two witnesses to your marriage, because this is a public thing. Your marriage is not for you. Your marriage is for the church. Your marriage is for the world, right? And the church makes it really clear in marriage preparation, and even in the vows itself, is that, yes, your marriage is about solidifying your love and the bringing forth of children, but it is also your vocation. This is your path to holiness. And how are you going to serve the world? And I think that we as Catholics have to start living that truth and bringing that truth into the world in how we live and in the decisions that we make and how we serve in the church. With that one.
Oh, I think that's so important. Yes. The temptation for us to just circle the wagon, I think sometimes, especially when the fires start building, and yet like what is going to pour even, I think, more grace into your relationship, into your marriage. What we saw was when we started serving and coming together as a team, that radically changed our relationship from a complacency and selfish, like a receiving, to a giving. You become everything when you are a true gift of self. But this idea that when, we love the Saint Catherine of Siena quote that says, if you are who you are supposed to be, you'll set the world ablaze. But if your marriage is what it's supposed to be, it'll set the world ablaze. And I think often we forget that part. And then in the comparison culture, which we talked about earlier, it can get easy to say like, oh, well, when I look at this, like, no, like your marriage is unique and has unique gifts and has a unique mission. And to be able to go away for the family board meeting and almost, I would say, throw your phones in the trash, but the ability to just look at each other and go, what is our vision versus what is all these accounts on Instagram saying my vision should be for my family? Is such an important part. And I love, we actually just did it last night too for fun, but you start the family board meeting often affirming. What are things that like you see, and like actually just intentionally giving each other a list last night of 5 was just like so connecting in the reminder of we are a team in this and where we've been.
What are some of you guys' favorite stories or just moments of working with other couples through the family board meeting?
We get a number of families who come to us are families who kind of feel like they're drowning, and for lots of different reasons. Big families, small families, but the example that I'll give, I think Mike is, I think I know what he's thinking of, but for my example, the couples that I love talking with are the couples who come and say, we have 7 kids. Our oldest is just becoming a teenager. Our house is too small. My husband worked really hard. I'm homeschooling all the kids, and we are just drowning. We don't even know, what we're doing. We're just trying to live the church's teaching, whatever. And those couples, I love talking to them because I really want to help them to get out of this victim mentality. And so I'm thinking of like one couple in particular. I think they have 8 children, and they're a beautiful couple, but they were so discouraged. They were just so discouraged, and mom was burned out and they weren't connecting. And to be able to walk with this couple through the family board meeting, through our course, And then they actually became members on our member site, and to be able to continue to see them month after month, and getting together and making time for each other, and to really become that family fully alive, from going from a place of drowning. And now I'm not saying that I'm not drowning sometimes too. I've totally, I do experience that. But the difference is the mentality of, I'm a victim. I'm out of control. I don't know what to do. I'm in despair. Where is God? Where's this happening? To come from saying, you know what? Yes, this is really hard right now, but I'm going to lean into God's grace. Lord, what do you have to teach me right now from having laundry that's out of control? Lord, I accept that laundry as, as a source of holiness for me, and to really start living intentionally. And one of the big things that we talk about in the family board meeting, because you can't prioritize everything, is to have order of priority, taking care of your health, making sure that you are sleeping and eating and do what you have to do to make that happen. That is such a huge issue. But then after that, taking care of your marriage, making sure that you're taking time for each other, and then after that, then it's taking care of the children. And then it's looking at, well, what are their needs? And honestly, couples who just even get those first three things, it's transformative. It's actually transformative. And then after that, we talk about developing giftedness. And then after that, family operations, running the house. And after that, then it's everything else.
Yeah.
And it is important that you get those things in order, because like we were saying before, the world needs you. The world needs you. And sometimes there have been periods of time in my life where, like you were saying, sometimes we just have to say, okay, all I can do is the family right now. Like, it's taking all of my energy just to take care of this. And so we would pull back from all ministries. I wouldn't even make meals for other moms. I was like, I can't. I keep forgetting. I keep forgetting to make these meals or bring them back, And I know you moms, you've all been there. You've made it and you're like, oh shoot, I gotta get you that. But there was a period of time where I was like, I can't even do that because I just need to take care of this right now. But the point is that I'm not going to stay there forever. And I recognize my motivation for getting my priorities in order is because I know that the world needs me and needs my family and needs my marriage. And so, you know what I mean? It's just like kind of like choosing wisely where you're spending your energy at different points in your life. And when we've been able to walk with couples and help them get those priorities so their families can be for their community and for their children and for each other, really what they're being called to. I mean, that is such a great, it's a great joy. It's a great joy for us.
Yeah. Yeah. Just another story. I don't want to go too long, but there's a couple who came to us who, I don't think they knew this on the front end, but as we walked through the process, they realized they were on two very different pages on how they were protecting their kids, how they were forming their kids in light of the secular culture around them.
And they just had two kids, and they had two kids that were in Catholic school, and they were kind of like a wealthy family.
And so they were the wife was super concerned and didn't know what to do about it, was frustrated. And the dad was kind of saying, yeah, I'm concerned, but that's just life in this day and age in 2021, 2022. This is what's happening in our world. And so, but then as we kind of just walk them through, well, this is the mission of the church. This is what you guys have uniquely defined as your vision. And for your kids, what do you want your kids to look like when they're going to get married in their 20s or whatever? And I said, so how does that align? We weren't forcing anything on them. We said, how does what you're doing today line up with that bigger vision, with the values that you've already defined? And there was a conviction that came and a deeper sense that, okay, you know what, if their physical health was in jeopardy, like we believe their moral life and their spiritual life are in jeopardy.
Wouldn't we do anything?
They would, go to whatever hospital, they would mortgage their house. They would do, whatever to save their life. Is their spiritual and moral life on that same level? And they were like, Ouch. And so it's like, but it's investments today, right? Oftentimes we don't spend time to stop and think about that. We're just trying to keep things going for today. Right? Parents are often shooting from the hip and putting out one fire to the other, or shuttling kids around depending on the age. But the private board meeting is a time to just take a pause.
Let's tell what happened.
And so at the end of the day, the couple got back to us. They emailed us like a week or so later and said, we're moving. We realized we've been spent the last 2 years looking for community, looking for opportunities. Right. And we knew we had a place where they had originally been a number of years ago. And they're like, we know there's strong community. We have friends, we have family who can support us, who share our values.
Right.
And they had the freedom to move.
Right.
And I think it doesn't always end up with that, right? It doesn't always go there.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's about connecting us with the call of Christ, also your unique particular vision and values that are part of what it means to be, your family, what it means to embrace what it means to have your unique identity.
And what made us so happy about that story is that if that couple had not come to the family board meeting, they would have, and their kids were like young teenagers, they would have just kind of kept going and just kept putting out fires,
putting on Band-Aids.
Exactly. Just kind of like managing what was right in front of them. But when they stepped back and they were like, wait a minute, what are we doing? What do we want for our kids? That what gave them the insights, and God, his Holy Spirit could come into them at that moment.
And united them too.
And united them, united them and helped them to see, this is what I want for you. And you're not a victim. You do have a choice.
And
so
funny,
it was
funny
really
enough, on that same family board meeting.
Oh yeah,
was couples we could connect with where they wanted to go.
Right.
Oh wow.
There's so many like overlaps.
Wow.
Yeah. You're like, oh good, we'll connect the two of you.
Perfect.
And then you got to accomplish your goal.
Yeah.
It one thing that really stands out to us, I think, in our own life through the family board meeting and as we work through Catholic couples and coaching them, is when you become awake to your values, when you get really clear with your vision and where you want your family to go and what your family considers important and how that relates to God's plan for you, then you start to realize that there's you don't have congruity in your life. Like your actions probably don't line up with what your actual values are. So it's almost just an awakening or like the reflection piece where you start to realize that, man, maybe the way that we spend our time, the way that we spend our money, even just the choices that we make don't really line up with what I want to be, what God wants me to be, and all of that. And it's such an important step to just to step back and to just take a look, big picture, the 50,000 foot view from your fighter jet of, hey, what do we want in our life? And is the path that we're leading to, the decisions that we're making, is it bringing us there?
That's right.
So
important.
Yeah. I wanted to know, what do you guys have from your family board meeting for this year as far as the Messy Family Project? Like what's on the horizon? What can our listeners be excited about in the Messy Family Project?
Well, I would say that we're still in process of finalizing everything, right? Sure. But when we spend time at the end of the year, kind of just praying about looking forward, you guys and what you're doing on YouTube are really serving the church. And we really feel like the courses have kind of pulled us into this direction where we really want to do more in kind of video space and sharing things, but making courses more accessible. We launched a new program that we're calling Messy Family University, where we have it's like the basic Catholic parenting course.
The 4 disciplines of the Catholic family. So it's almost like a pre-family board meeting, because sometimes we found like if people are not familiar with what we do, the family board meeting can be a bit too intense.
Sure.
And so we're like, okay, well, what's the entry level course?
Yeah.
Like
the 101.
Exactly. So we call that Messy Family University, and we're actually doing that. It's a live course that we do in parishes. And so we're slated right now to do that in 4 or 5 parishes throughout the country. We're kind of getting more requests all the time. And so if you want to find a Messy Family University course, we'll have those listed on our website. And people, usually parishes are, welcome other people to come. And then there's a workbook and everything that goes along with that. And and then we kind of do a virtual follow-up after that.
And a couple of things that we've always been happy with, that we've kind of just take a new refreshed look. So we did Cana 90. We started a couple years ago, a couple's kind of reflection through Lent, right? And so we're really reviving, refreshing this for this coming Lent. And so we're in the process of kind of going through different covenants and how they relate to your marriage. How do you lead as the spiritual leaders in your home?
And the elements of family culture. That's also going to be incorporated into Cana 90 this year. And so that's our Lenten program that brings us right into the summer when we do the Pray and Play Challenge, which is our program to get people to pray and play with their kids and to consecrate your family to the Sacred Heart of Jesus.
Awesome. And we have a couple other things, but there's like, a course for dads, like just spending some time helping dads become more intentional
Yes. And then I have a course for moms with their preteen girls to talk about those changes into becoming a woman. It's called Women Wonderfully Made. And that's a 5-week course that's going to be offered along with the dad's course every Thursday in March. And because I know that like all of those issues surrounding becoming a woman, whether it's physical needs, emotional needs, even spiritual needs, can be tough to take time to do with your daughter. And so I've done this course that'll be the 3rd time that I'm doing it with a group of moms and daughters, and it's so great.
Awesome.
Yeah. There's other little things too as well. That's
nice.
I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for coming on the show. I think something we've been really convicted about recently is the fact we just in reflecting through, we're coming up on 10 years worth of marriage and the ups and downs through that, and how when we first got married, there was a lot of marriage preparation type stuff, and then there was a lot of marriage crisis stuff, but there was almost no marriage enrichment. We were looking for retreats and we couldn't find anything, and resources and stuff. And it's been so beautiful to see your ministry as it grows, and something that has really filled up our marriage, and something that I think we really feel called to in just this marriage enrichment, to help couples that they're not, about to get married, and they're not like
about to get divorced.
But there's such a spectrum of beautiful young couples that are just thirsty, that are just wanting more for their marriage. And it's why we started the Catholic coaching. And it's why it's, as we start to look at the future of our ministry and our family, and just really excited about doing marriage enrichment. And it's beautiful to see that you guys have done this, and the impact that it's had, and almost the inspiration for us that there is a market out there, that there's people who want to make their marriages better. And so just thank you for everything that you guys have done.
Thank you guys. I mean, seriously, it's a joy to be with you, but it's been a joy to get to know you. And I'm confident in what God has for you. I don't know what it is, but look at you, like, just tell you, that fighter jet is going to be, going farther and higher.
Well, we'll make sure to put links below to your guys' website, to the family board meeting webinar, to just some of the different resources we've talked about through this. They're all incredible, and I think that they are such a gift. And so we'll make sure, and then your social handles as well. So people, please follow.
Yes.
Please listen to this podcast, and please work on transforming your marriage.
Yeah. And January 28th, for all our listeners out there, we will be there. So we're super excited for the family board meeting webinar. I think it's something that will really change your guys' life in a beautiful way, discovering God's plan for you, and building the unity between you and your spouse to be able to run your family organization as the board. So again, thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. It's been wonderful. You.